I'm back, Jeremy. Just
I
gotta-
can hear you, Katie. I'm just not looking at that screen right now. I'm
No worries.
going live on YouTube.
Okay.
And we should be live.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. We're going to just give folks another minute or two to come in for the transportation meeting.
I still have 6:29, so we haven't started.
Oh, okay.
We haven't started the webinar yet. And we do have a lot of attendees, at least signed up.
Right. Okay.
All right, now I have 6:30, so I'm going to start the webinar.
All right, folks, thanks. If you're just joining, we're going to give people a few minutes to come in.
And Katie, just a reminder, when you're ready to start, please ask me to call roll.
Yes, thank you. Just going to look for a few more board members, transportation committee members who are joining, and then we'll get started. Here.
Where's the
Okay, if you're just joining, just ask if you can put yourself on, make sure you're on mute. Otherwise, we can help with that. And I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. Let's see if I can do this just to show the agenda. Is that something, Jeremy, you would be able to help me with?
Oh, sorry, Katie. I should have made you co-host to start.
It's okay.
You are the co-host. You can share your screen.
Okay, great. So let me just very simple agenda, just for everybody who's joining. Let me just see if I can make this full screen. So this is a fantastic turnout. Want to thank everybody on that. Sorry, I had actually flipped these around and it didn't show up in my saved. Okay, so welcome to the Community Board 7 Transportation meeting. I'm the chair of this committee. Katie Walsh. John DeLuper is also on. He's the vice chair. We're actually going to flip these. We're going to do the street renaming request for 47th Street between 4th and 5th. Understanding and recognizing that the Sealy Street study is going to take us a little bit longer. So apologize, it's not reflected correctly here in the agenda, but we'll do street renaming request first, then do Sealy Street, take the time that requires. And then I have some slides that were shared by DOT on the neighborhood loading zones, and we'll have a short discussion on that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to do roll call, and then we'll get started. Okay, thank you, Jeremy.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to mute everyone. And I am going to call the Transportation Committee. If you are a member of the board but not a committee member, I am going to write your name down but not call your name. When I do call your name, though, please unmute yourself, acknowledge your name, and then mute yourself again. There are a few people I'm going to make an exception to because we have new board members and our board members may not be aware of who they are. So after the roll call, I will mention the new board members who are here as well. So let's start with Katie Walsh.
Present.
Thank you. John DeLuper.
Present.
Thank you. Joan Body. Joan Body. Jerry Chan.
I'm here. I'm here.
Thank you. Diana Gonzalez.
Here.
Thank you. Zachary Jacey. Zachary Jacey. Roberto Martinez.
Present.
Thank you. Marilyn Melman. Marilyn Melman. Gabino Morales.
Present.
Thank you. Sam Sierra. Sam Sierra. Cindy Vandenbosch. Cindy Vandenbosch. Chairperson Julio Pena.
Present.
Thank you. The committee has been called. I do want to mention some of our new board members, though. Damian Andrade is here. So to make our board members aware, these are maybe your new colleagues. Doris Ostall is here. Esteban Chavez. You've met Gabino Morales before. He's been a committee member for a while, but he is now a board member as well. Glorinette Contras. Jeremy Kaplan. And Ryan Smith. So several of our new board members are here. Katie, it's all yours.
Great, thank you so much. And welcome to the new board members. Transportation covers a lot of issues, and we are always ready and willing to welcome new members to transportation as well to work through them. So thank you if this is something you're coming to check out and consider. I'm thrilled by the participation that we have from neighbors and community members from Sealy Street. If you're just joining, I shared at the top that we will be leading off with something that our committee comes before us, which is when there's street renaming requests that comes to the Transportation Committee. So that's what we're going to do today. We have a vote on it. We'll learn a little bit more from the petitioner for it. Then we'll go straight to Sealy Street and then the neighborhood loading zones. All right, so I'm going to ask for Jeremy's help and just see who is going to be presenting on the request for the street renaming. So for who is here.
So we have several members of the Varela family who are here. Andy, would you like to speak?
And Andy, if you would like to, so this is first 47th between 4th and 5th, just give us a little context of the proposal and anything else you want to add on that.
Or if another member of the family would like to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Andy Varella's daughter. Our whole family is very proud of what my father accomplished being in business. He started out as a war veteran, came over here, and he wore many different hats in the area. He was a president, a board member, a chairperson. He was very involved with the Hispanic Boys Council, Lutheran Medical Center, Association of Latin American Travel Agents, of course, the Lions Club, Niños Lisiados. It was very important to him to help the children and the families of Sunset Park. We were always taught to give back, and he started his business from 41st and 4th to 43rd and 4th, then to 47th. He had multiple businesses on 4th Avenue. So we're just very proud that it's come up and it's possible to have his name put on that street.
Thank you so much. Are there, I think Judith Santiago, is that correct? I just want to make sure you were breaking up a little bit. You're the daughter?
Yes, I'm his daughter.
Okay, great. Thank you. I don't know if it was on my side or not.
Andy, I know.
Also on there.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I know George Cardona brought this to us originally. Perhaps he would like to speak as well. George, I know I promoted you to a panelist. If you wish to unmute yourself, you can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I have been in Sunset Park since 1978. Andy Varela has always been involved supporting the community. There are people in the area. They could be Puerto Rican, Mexican, Dominican, Polish, that I personally know that got personal mortgages from Andy because he believed in people owning a home. He always helped people in the neighborhood. If you saw him outside of Sunset Park, he was very proud of Sunset Park and always got involved in whatever needed to be done in the area. He was a very, very, very decent man. He didn't have an ego. He wasn't one of these guys where, hey, kiss my hand because I'm here, but rather let me roll up my sleeves and see what I can do. Part of the reason why this neighborhood is pretty good is because of people like him who were here when it was tough. He was one of the few people that would go meet the gangs to try to clear those issues up. He was also part on the board of the Lutheran Hospital. Whatever he could get involved in to help the community, he was always willing. The other thing is he never recognized people or identified people by their, if they're Italian, if they're Puerto Rican. It was just, these are people from Sunset Park. These are nice people from Sunset Park. This is a community from Sunset Park. And if you're here from the 70s and 80s and 90s, you have to know who Andy was. And again, whenever things were needed in the neighborhood, he would try to help out. He got that old trolley bus to come around and pick up kids in the neighborhood. He would buy lunches for the kids in the neighborhood. And he would always talk about moving forward. You know, people don't realize he started as a messenger boy and worked himself way up. He believed in the American dream of trying to work and work and work yourself up as long as the opportunities were there. And me, when I was going to college and I would see him, he would always say, you're going to have challenges, but you got to go forward. You got to talk forward. You can't stop. You can't be discouraged. And that was his attitude for Sunset Park. Some people named him the mayor of Sunset Park because all the people he knew and everything he could do in the area. I don't know if people remember in the 70s, there used to be a relay race from Sunset Park, 60th Street, all the way down to Park Slope and back. He was in charge of that, where everybody got involved to run. And it was so good to see people of different cultures, different groups, you know, young people, old people, just running and staying in shape. And again, he would do everything he can for the neighborhood so everybody could get involved. I'm very passionate about him. I've known his family for a long time, and they've always been involved. His family still gets involved in things when they can help out with things in the neighborhood for the kids. He always believed it was very important to help the kids from the beginning. If you ignore kids, they're going to be lost. If you give them that chance from the beginning and give them that opportunity, and again, a lot of people got to know who he is because he helped a lot of businesses stay afloat when things were tough and so forth. And God bless him and God bless his family. And thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you.
And again, he's from the area from the 60s and 70s. And if you meet his family, you're going to love him. And he was a guy. He got along with Yankee fans. He got along with Met fans. He wasn't, hey, if this guy's this is that. He knew how to get along and bring everybody together. And God bless him and his family for that. And thank you for this opportunity.
And giving us some additional context. I will, and again, Judith, thank you for joining. I will turn over to board members to ask any community board 7 members, give deference if you're like on the transportation committee, but if you're just a board member and you have a question, feel free to do that. You could put your hand up if you have a question. I think this should be pretty straightforward, but I will just see if there's any board members who have their hands up. Give people a second. Jeremy, as far as I know, there's nothing. It's not named.
Board members, would you like to open it up to attendees?
Yes. For questions, we could just, as a courtesy, if you have a question, to put your hand up. That's happy to entertain that. Okay, over to you, Jeremy, helping navigate this.
You want me to call them?
Yes, please.
I have Jorge Muniz Reyes. Jorge, you can unmute yourself.
For a question. Thank you.
Hang on one second. Why can't I unmute you? For some reason. Okay, Jorge, you can unmute yourself now.
Hey, hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just a quick question. First of all, I want to say thank you to George and to the family of Andy Varela for sharing their story. It's always very heartbreaking whenever someone passes away. Of course, different families in the neighborhood have to have different ways that honor lost loved ones. I think the city council member just did something in Greenwood for some of the families from COVID. So, we take these things very seriously. I think ultimately the city council member, Alexa Vilas, will need to be the one that brings this forward. And so I just, thank you for what you're doing. My question is just to make sure I understand this is the right person. Andy Varela, is this the same person as the individual behind Varela Realty?
Yes.
Just because I want to make sure. Yeah. Is that, sorry, I didn't catch
Yes,
that.
he was.
Yes.
Okay.
He was Andy travel agency, insurance, realty. And again, he started as a messenger guy and worked his way up. And I remember going to college. He told me, George, you're going to be entry level. Don't get disappointed. You got to work your way up. Don't think,
George,
oh, you're party.
George, as a courtesy, could I just, what I want to be able to do is just have Jorge ask the question, and then
Please.
this way we can go back. Thank you so much. So Jorge, do you want to just ask, is that your only question?
Yeah, that was really my question. I just wanted to make sure we're
Okay.
talking about the same one. This is Andy Varela. I just wanted to confirm with the family or again, those that know him well, if it's that same individual.
Yes.
I'm head nods, so it sounds like my question has been answered.
Yes,
And
sir.
so the only I just wanted to say is that, we recognize there's been a tremendous amount of lives lost. And I would just ask this board to think clearly about, who we're honoring: landlords, workers. It's a big decision to co-name a street, actually. So that's it. Thank you for addressing my question. And if the family would like to comment further about the connection with real estate or landlord or banking, please, I'm here to learn and to listen.
Okay, thanks. So we'll go back. That's the only question that came in. So we'll just go back to Judith as a courtesy's daughter, if you'd like to respond.
Well, he had multiple businesses on North Avenue, the real estate. He had an auto parts, travel, and the insurance are still in business now. I'm not sure if he had any additional part to that question, but it was all of his businesses, yes.
Yeah, I think you answered that, and George did as well. Okay, appreciate it.
Katie, there's an additional hand up. But there, I
Okay.
believe there's a question about process. Where I just wanted to say, the process starts with the council member. Council member has to be willing to put forth legislation to do this renaming. And once we understand they're willing to do that, then we hold the local meeting. So this did come to us. We did check in with the council member's office. I have Megan Gould next. Megan, you can unmute yourself.
And just, this is a question about specifically this street renaming. Otherwise, then we're going to get to Sealy Street.
Nope, it's actually in regards to some of Jorge's comments. I just wanted to respond. I am Judith Santiago's daughter. Andrew was my grandfather.
Okay.
He was not just a landlord. He was not just a banker. He was a man who loved his neighborhood, and you guys should really honor him and consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
There are people that own homes in Sunset Park because he believed in helping people get a home. And he always was, his rents were never up. They were reasonable things. And he always helped people. And he used to tell people, own a home. And he would give people that mortgage that banks would not give. You don't see that anymore. And you got to think about how many people have done that. And part of Sunset Park's success now is because of people like him. If he wasn't here, he was somewhere else, that other neighborhood would have been flourishing and not this part. So we got to thank him for all that he's done.
Thank you. Thank you, Georgia. And I know Sunset Park was redlined as a community, so people were not able to get mortgages here. I'm going to ask if it's questions or comments, and we're trying to get to, we've got a whole lot of folks from Sealy Street who came, up maybe about 80 people. So Cynthia and Julio, y'all can keep it.
I'll have my chair go first, Katie.
Okay, thank you.
Protocol respect, and I'll go after Mr. Pena.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Katie. And I'll try to be as brief as possible. I just wanted to say some of the original cooperatives in Sunset Park, and I'm very fortunate to live in one, were founded by Finnish immigrants. And these immigrants could not get traditional mortgages from banks, and they had to rely on each other to one, purchase these buildings and to finance them, and then relied heavily on family relations. And hearing that story of like purchasing, of relying on someone in a pillar in the community to lend money to be able to purchase a home is something that I don't think really happens quite often. So I appreciate that story. I didn't know Andy personally, but my family did, and they relied on his travel agency to travel back and forth from Puerto Rico when my family came here in the 60s and 70s, and to travel back and forth through the great Puerto Rican migration of the 70s and 80s. So my family owes a debt to him because they didn't, we didn't have Expedia.com back in the 80s. They had travel agencies, and that's how they relied. So this board is certainly, and me as chair, certainly supportive of renaming this street after, an institution of someone who really is someone who exemplifies like of like someone who is inspiring and who really knows how of surviving in a place that's it's really hostile to folks that look like us. So thank you for sharing your stories, and I will stop there.
Thank you, Julio. And I'll just go to Cynthia, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Hi. So as a lifelong resident of Sunset Park, I knew Andy both on a personal level, and then I had the pleasure of working under Andy's leadership in the Sunset Park Lions Club. Andy was more than a landlord, more than that. It didn't define him. It's what he did, but it wasn't who he was. Who he was a caring, kind individual who really cared about the community and really impacted thousands of us here in the community, children, adults alike. He always was looking out for his fellow community member, and really exemplifies what we are here in Sunset Park, which is a community of hardworking immigrants who come and give their very best, not only for themselves, but for their neighbors. And I'm very proud that he was the president of the Sunset Park Lions Club, and under his leadership, the Sunset Park Lions Club thrived. And we were able to provide many activities for community members, including celebrating Three Kings Day, having outings for the children that were part of the Domestic Violence Center, and honoring his name, co-naming a street in his honor, just lends to the legacy of what we do. And like Julio, I agree, many times we don't honor people, especially those who lift people of color. And I think it's time we continue to do that. So I urge the board and the committee members to vote yes to co-name. Andy passed away many years ago, was not COVID related. I just want to be clear on that. But the impact of his death was felt by many, and he still lives in the heart of many of us. So myself, and I'm also speaking on behalf of the district governor for the Lions Club, the District 20K1, which has over 15 clubs in Brooklyn, including us in Sunset Park. We all support this, and we would be honored if this were to occur. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll go to board member Damaris, and then we're gonna take a vote, and we'll go to Celia Street issue. Damaris, do you want to unmute yourself if you have some brief comments?
Hi, I'll be very brief because all I'll do is reiterate Julio Peña and Julio Peña, because my family also knew Andy very well. So I could just go by growing up in the neighborhood, what I used to hear from my family. And then I'm going to also concur with Cynthia, because both her and I joined the Lions Club around the same time under Andy's leadership, where we learned a lot, and we both worked together on some of these events, including the health fair, which we had for many, many years. But one thing I just wanted to say very briefly is that I remember him specifically telling me that when you own a business in a community, it means nothing unless you give back to that same community that supports you as a business person. And I always remembered that you give back. And that's something that came directly from him to me.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna move to, unless it's a, guess I do see, Gloria Rodriguez Novoa. Jeremy, with your help.
Gloria, you can unmute yourself.
I know Andy a little bit longer because I started doing real estate in the 80s. And between him and Bob Rodriguez, they showed me the ropes. And the first thing he said was, Gloria, don't rent. Second thing he said is, everybody that lives in my building knows they need to save so they can rent. And he was my neighbor because he bought a building across the street. And what he did is he spoke to the tenants and said, hey, buy this building. And I don't mean in 1976 or 1996. I'm talking about in the 2000s. He told the neighbor, buy the building. I'll hold the mortgage. When you got it together, you can go to a bank. Because it was a little bit more then. But he did it because that's who Andy Varela was. His spirit was of giving. He was the only person I think of when I think of a landlord who is more a caretaker of the property, because he wants every single person in his building to one day become his fellow landlord. And for us not to honor the grandness of him, the gentleman who was a leader in Sunset Park Redevelopment Committee, which I am a proud member of for the last 20 years. For us not to say Andy's the guy, I can't say what we would say.
Thank you, Gloria. And thank you everyone for your testimony and sharing your experience and history with Andy. So I am, at this point, I'm going to move to for the transportation committee members. So it's, if you're on the transportation committee, we did roll call at the top. We're going to move to unanimous consent to support that the naming of the, Jeremy's unmuted. Jeremy?
You don't have a motion on the floor.
Oh, I don't have a motion. Okay. So help me with
I move
process.
to,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
move to approve the street co-naming.
Great. There's a motion. Okay. So
I'll
seconded.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by John. Let's do seconded by John DeLooper. And then so introduced by Diana, seconded by John DeLooper for the street renaming for 47th Street between 4th and 5th to be named Andy Rilla Way. I would like to do this by unanimous consent. So now I'll give for your transportation committee board member. Right, Jeremy, now I say if you're.
So you would say if anybody would prefer a roll call vote, speak up now. Otherwise, it would be considered unanimous consent.
Okay, so if anyone wants to do the roll call vote for transportation committee members, this is when you would say it. I'll give you a minute. Okay. I'm not seeing any requests for roll call vote from the CB7 transportation committee members. So with that, it passes by unanimous consent. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the family.
Thank
To
you.
the board members who provided your support. We will provide this update to Community Board 7 members on at Wednesday's board meeting this week.
Katie, Andy Rilla has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Yes, Andy, I will call on you if you'd like to share anything.
Andy, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, Damaris pretty much said what I was going to say. So I really don't have much to add to it. I just thank you for the unanimous vote. I appreciate it. I know my father would be honored to have that done. Thank you.
So much. We really appreciate you're able to come. Well, thank you to all the family members and fellow board members who were able to share this. Okay, so now you're welcome to stay with us if you'd like. We're gonna go to the next agenda item for tonight's meeting, which is on the Sealy Street study. So this is long awaited coming, and we've got a couple folks from DOT. So I'm going to turn to Emily, who we usually work with. Emily, you will tell me who is going to be presenting tonight.
Yeah, so I'm just here representing the Brooklyn Borough Commissioner's Office of DOT. My colleague Bhavin Patel, he's going to do the presentation today, and he's in the traffic planning and management side of DOT. But we thank everyone from Sealy Street for being here. I see the representation in the chats, and I appreciate your patience while we were getting this together. So I'm just going to hand it over to Bhavin to get us started.
Okay, so I will assume that.
Let me see.
Do you see me here?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yes, we can.
Okay.
We can hear you. And then do you need to be able to share your presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Jeremy, that's your side, right?
You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, thank you. Once again, good evening, everyone. Thank you for everyone, especially the board and the residents, for coming out tonight. Again, my name is Bhavin Patel. I'm from the city's office of DOT's Office of Traffic Engineering Planning. The other Bhavin Patel that you see is actually my colleague, Simon Mao, who's also in my unit. And we'll show you our results from our study from Sealy Street. And then we can take questions afterwards All right, can everyone see the presentation slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So as Emily mentioned before, I know this has been sort of long time in coming. And the main reason was we had a delay in collecting data. What we initially had planned to collect data, which was in last May, was interrupted because, as some of you might be aware, they're building a new residential building on Sealy Street between 20 and 19th Street. And when we were actually collecting the data, they had actually closed the street to traffic, so we were not able to get the proper data at that time. So then we had to wait for that construction to basically complete, so the streets, Sealy Street and 19 and 20th Street were operating as normally. So that's the main reason that we had this delay. So we had to recollect the data. So just to give you a little background, we studied two locations. Initially, the request from the community board and council member Carol's office was for Sealy Street, from Prospect Park Southwest to McDonald Avenue, as seen in the dotted rectangle. And then a month or so later, we also got a request for 20th Street, from Vanderbilt Street to Terrace Place. Both of these locations are primarily residential. There is one small business at the corner of Sealy Street and Prospect Park Southwest. As I mentioned, the request came in January 2022 from CB7 and Councilmember Carroll's office on behalf of mainly the residents on Sealy Street. And the main concerns that was expressed to us at that time was that there's a lot of congestion, resulting mainly from the narrowness of Sealy Street. In March of 2022, we sort of had a kickoff meeting that was hosted by Community Board 7 and the residents on Sealy Street to discuss, what their main concerns that they saw living as on Sealy Street and what sort of solutions that they would like to see on that corridor. And as I mentioned, then we started the data collection process. Last month, we did have a meeting with the local elected officials just to brief them on the study results and possible proposals for both of these streets. So some of the existing conditions, first of all, Sealy Street, currently it's a two-way 30-foot wide street with parking on both sides. There's a small one-block portion between 19th Street and 18th Street where the street actually flares out to like 50 feet wide. But as I mentioned, the rest of it is like 30 feet. If you travel down Sealy Street, especially in the AM and PM peak hours, and especially if there's a larger vehicle that's like, even if it's a pickup truck, a lot of times you're forced to like sort of pull over to the side to allow the opposing vehicle to pass by. And this leads to a lot of side swipes of not just parked vehicles, but also moving vehicles along Sealy Street. From our observations and our data collections, we noticed that a lot of the vehicles that are on Sealy Street, especially on the segment between 19th Street going towards Prospect Park Southwest, are vehicles that are coming off the Prospect Expressway, coming down 19th Street, and then going towards Prospect Park Southwest and points south and west. So it's almost, Sealy Street's almost used as a cut-through route for these eastbound vehicles. There are truck restriction signage posted on Sealy Street as well as adjacent intersections. But as a resident, you probably noticed that a lot of these trucks do ignore these signs consistently, and we observed the same. 20th Street is similar in that it's also 30 feet wide with parking on both sides. It also has the same situations where when you have two opposing vehicles, there's tendencies for the vehicles being forced to pull over to the side to allow the opposing vehicles to pass. And as you can see from the picture, The top picture shows a truck entering, going southbound, and that truck is basically has to wait at the intersection, blocking the crosswalk to allow the northbound vehicles to pass before it's able to proceed. So based on our data collection, our observations, we're proposing some pedestrian safety improvements as well as traffic circulation improvements. So the first is a set of pedestrian neck downs, curb extensions at 2 intersections. The first one would be at Prospect Park Southwest, and the other one would be at 19th Street. Both of these would be in pink, and this would greatly reduce the crossing distance and also visibility for pedestrians as vehicles are turning onto Sealy Street. The second set of improvements is something that's already happened, part of it, which was additional traffic controls. I know that's something that was raised as a concern when we had our initial kickoff meeting. So recently, in March, we installed an all-way stop sign on Sealy Street and 19th Street. And there is an approved traffic signal that will get installed. We don't know exactly the date, but it is approved at Prospect Park Southwest and Sealy Street. The other locations, I know there was also a request for 18th Street, but that location did not meet the warrants for an additional traffic control, so we're not able to have any installed in that location. The last proposal is to convert Sealy Street into a one-way going westbound from Prospect Park Southwest to McDonald Avenue. And the westbound direction was due to the fact that this would eliminate the eastbound cut-through traffic that's occurring right now, and this would also improve not only that congestion that occurs due to opposing vehicle friction, but it would also increase safety because by reducing turn conflicts at the intersections that exist with two-way traffic. We're also proposing for 20th Street to become a one-way northbound from Vanderbilt to Terrace Place. This is the only part of 20th Street that's actually a two-way right now. And as I mentioned before, that this is a narrow portion, and the 20th Street northbound would pair with 19th Street southbound or McDonald Avenue. So this is a proposed rendering of what Sealy Street would look like as a one-way. As I mentioned before, on Sealy Street between 19th and 18th Street, it is fairly wide at 50 feet. So what we would do to narrow the roadway is propose 2 travel lanes. One would be a through and one would be a left turn only. The parking would remain on both sides. And as I mentioned, that there would be a neck downs on 19th Street on the east crosswalk. Yeah, that's it. We can go back to the board for questions, comments.
Yeah, we will. Where is this posted on the DOT website so that people, because this is the first time people are interacting with this?
Yeah, so this will be posted after today's meeting on our website. I'll send a link to Jeremy and the board, and then you can distribute it to your members.
Okay, and then just in terms of process, before we open this up, can you guys talk a little bit, can you go back to that first slide, which I think showed timelines? People will have questions about the substance, but okay, so April 2023, brief local officials and study findings and proposal. Could you just say who was briefed in April about this proposal? Which local elected officials were briefed on the study findings and proposal?
It should have been Assembly Member Carroll, and 1 second, let me just pull it up. Exactly. Oh, it was Councilmember Hanif's office, and that was who we discussed with. Yes.
Okay, so those two council members, any other local elected officials?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna go to questions in a quick second. Can you just talk about, so these are your proposals for the suggestions. You've got a bunch of things here that people are still digesting. What are the timelines associated? What does it look like? You're here tonight. Just kind of tell us more about the process.
Yeah, so just before I hand it off to Bhavin, who can speak more on the scheduling of the project installation, I do want to remind the board that we are here for a letter of support, so that will be needed at the end. If we do not receive the letter of support, then the project will be shelved, and I just do want to make that very clear for everyone. Bhavin, can you speak a little bit more to timeline?
Yeah, sure. So if we get, like, as Emily mentioned, a letter of support, then we proceed with the implementation process, which we would try to aim probably late summer, like August into September. That would be the best scenario as far as implementation. As far as the traffic signal, that I would have to get back to you after I confer with the other signals unit as far as when that would be installed in Prospect Park Southwest.
I do want to note that the community board has been asking about the installation of this approval of this approved intersection control. However, I do want to note that we have been working with resources and delays and backlogs. So we don't have an exact date as of now, but we are working towards that. And it is a priority for us to get it installed this year.
That's the lighting or the signal specifically, right, Emily, is what you're referring
Right.
to?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry for hogging the mic for so long. I'm John DeLoopers, Vice Chair for Transportation. If you want to ask any questions, and then let's go to board members, like, people just put their hands up. I mean, Sealy Street, we're here for you. We want to hear from you. So you're putting posts in the comment, but then we'll also open the mic and just as a courtesy, ask everyone to kind of keep your comments brief. So
Sure.
John, and then let's go from there.
I'll just ask a couple quick questions related to the presentation. First, in terms of the neck downs, are those I see are painted? Is there any plans to eventually turn them into concrete? I know the DOT has been working on that in several areas, and I wanted to see if that was also the plan for these.
Currently there isn't, but that's something we can surely look at, but right now, no.
Okay, and then the next question was, in terms of the one-way conversion, other times you've come to, DOT has come to meetings and mentioned that one-way conversions sometimes make traffic faster. Can you talk more about what specifically you've done in this case to make it so that the traffic speed is not increased in a dangerous manner to the people who walk, bike, and drive on this road?
So, I mean, as you might be aware, there's already existing speed humps on Sealy Street, and the additional traffic controls would also curtail any speeding. My unit basically does street conversions. That's our bread and butter. And from our experience, I'm not going to say speeding is not possible, but overall that hasn't been the case for conversions. So yeah, we don't foresee it to become like a drag race.
Okay, cool. So those were my key questions, and I think we can turn it over to the other board members and attendees for theirs.
Okay, that's great. So we've got a lot of folks from Sealy Street and neighboring areas, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to come. So let's go to Diana and then Cindy, and then we're going to go on deck to some of the hands that are up. Thanks.
Okay, so first off, a lot of folks were asking if you could go back to slide 9. So can we see that again? So this is painted curb extensions. And so here we have the left turn lane. What is the logic between having 2 lanes instead of just one?
So as I mentioned, that this portion is 50 feet wide. So once the street is converted into one way, essentially, if we did it 1 lane, that 1 lane would be 24 feet wide, which is not something that we do. The max width lane that we have is 12 feet.
So this is the bridge, the
Yes.
block with the bridge, right? Where there's no parking on either side.
No, there is parking,
There is parking. Okay.
which would remain as is.
All right. And then the question I also see a lot of people have is about implementation. What is the timeline for each of these changes? You're talking about paint, a new stoplight, probably a bunch of new signage. When's this all going to happen?
So as I mentioned, if we do get the letter of support, we would aim for an August into September implementation. So all of the stuff that I mentioned, without the exception of the traffic signal, would go in at the same time, meaning the street conversion, the signage, the painted curb extensions. The traffic signal, as Emily mentioned, we are sort of backlogged, still trying to work from COVID back. So that's something that we don't have an exact date, but as Emily mentioned, that is a priority and that would get installed, but most likely it wouldn't get installed at the same time.
When are we going to have an exact date?
For the signal or this?
For all of it.
Well,
we'd be able to
for the
tell you a little bit further into the summer once we get everything scheduled. So right now we don't have anything scheduled. Moving forward from this, as soon as we get the letter, then that sets for the motion of internal scheduling with markings contracts, things like that.
And then, will you be able to inform the board when that information is available?
Of course, yes.
Okay. So then the next question I have is, when this no longer becomes the route of choice, where are the cars going to go? Is that something that you looked at? Is traffic impacts on the surrounding streets?
Yeah, so part of the data collection was so we can model what the reroutes would be. And the reroute would occur on 11th Street, Terrace Place. But again,
I'm sorry, 11th Street?
Yeah, which is the eastbound route north of Sealy Street. Back to a map. Sorry. Yep, I'm sorry, 11th.
11th Avenue, right.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, so like I mentioned, so we did model the reroutes. And basically it would equate to 2 to 3 vehicles every traffic cycle. So it's not like a huge amount of volumes that would be rerouted. It equates to like 2 to 3 vehicles every cycle.
All right, and now you've mentioned that there's no truck signage that's routinely ignored. Are there any plans to mitigate that in any way? Because it doesn't seem like this really addresses that.
So that's something that we would work with our Borough Commissioner's office to reach out to the local precinct for more enforcement. As I mentioned, the signage is located along Sealy Street, and as well as if you're coming down 19th Street at 11th Avenue, there's signage that also indicates that trucks should not be going, down further south. The section of Terrace Place between McDonald and 19th Street is a local truck route because it allows trucks to get onto the Prospect. But that's something like, as we had, observed, that's something that we would work with the NYPD to get more enforcement.
Okay, those are all of my questions. And I just want to say, I know a lot of people are really filled with this proposal. And as a community board member, this is the issue that I hear the most about. This is a really important issue, and I hope that you will prioritize its implementation. Thank you.
Thank you. I just did want to pick up, we, on lots of issues in the neighborhood, like NYPD does not do enforcement. of traffic and transportation. This is something we talked to Emily a lot about. Could you, just the last comment that you just made about that's the safety of making sure that that happens without having the enforcement happen? Like how can you secure it?
So we have internal ways of speaking to NYPD, and especially to the local precincts, and have them, make sure to put a regular patrol in a certain area, especially if we flag it for them. On our end, the DOT side, what we can do with that is in our toolbox is a mobile speed camera deployment. If there's speeding going on the street, we can use that as a temporary measure, but we do not have the enforcement capability, and that truly does fall onto NYPD.
Okay, let's go to Cindy. Are you still here? Yes. Okay, Cindy, and then go to some of the neighbors.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for addressing this in such a timely fashion. I'm a resident of the neighborhood and live just a couple blocks down the hill and walk up this way all the time. I do not recall, I know that there are some speed bumps, but I'm kind of closer to the Greenwood Cemetery side of the neighborhood, and I don't recall there being speed bumps on this side of the neighborhood. And was that something that you looked at or accounted for?
So yeah, you're correct. The speed bumps are more east of 18th Street. The segments, and we could have our speed hump unit look at it again. But the segments between 19th and McDonald, the issue is they're short blocks with curb cuts, which doesn't allow for speed humps to be installed. But again, I'd have to go back and see if it's been past, I believe it's 18 months that they can relook at it. So we can certainly have it look at it.
Okay, and then this is also a street where a lot of people ride their bicycles. And I'm wondering where that's, is that accounted for in this redesign?
So we did look at that. So the bike lane would have to be sharrows, basically. It wouldn't be like even a conventional bike lane because of the width of the street and the parking. So if you wanted like an actual protected or conventional bike lane, then parking would have to be removed. So the only bike treatment you could get is like sharrows.
Okay. And then I wasn't able to see some of the detail in slide 12, and I saw a few people in the chat also wanting to look at that more closely. Okay. I think it's slide 12. Yes, this one. Okay, so it's a little small on the screen. Can you verbally walk us through what we're looking at here?
Sure. So basically this shows a draft drawing of what Sealy Street's markings would look like if it was converted into a one-way. So starting where I'm circling with my mouse pointer, this is Prospect Park Southwest. This shows the two painted curb extensions at that intersection. And then it's just basically showing the additional markings that would be installed as part of the one-way. There's no other real markings until you get to like the block between 18th and 19th Street, which I mentioned, it's extremely wide, so we can't have like the 24-foot travel lane. So what we decided to do was have two travel lanes, one for vehicles continuing westbound and one for left turns that occur onto southbound 19th Street. And then parking would remain as is on both north and south of that. And then the two neck downs painted again at 19th Street to reduce the width of crossing right here. And then it's just, again, markings at 28th Street, which already exist because it's always stop sign, and then at McDonald Avenue. So it's just basically showing the markings that would be put down as part of a one-way conversion.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then last but not least, and then I'm going to cede the floor because there's many people here with their hands up. Trucks barreling through the streets has been such an issue and very scary. It's a lot of children live in this community. Where do they, could you walk us through, especially there's some folks on the transportation committee who live in Sunset Park, so might be less familiar with the traffic patterns in Windsor Terrace. Could you describe again the issue of the trucks and how this is going to hopefully reroute trucks off of these residential streets?
Yeah, so the trucks, what they should be doing and what they're doing is totally different. Obviously, you guys know that. So the trucks that are coming off the Prospect Expressway, so they're supposed to turn right. They're not supposed to continue down 19th Street. They're supposed to turn right on 10th Avenue and then go down McDonald Avenue, which is the truck route. And there's signage posted right at the intersection when they come off the ramp that says no through truck traffic except local deliveries. Obviously, as I mentioned, that those signs are sort of not being adhered to. There's also signs at 11th Avenue that says no trucks. The segment between 19th Street and McDonald Avenue and Terrace Place is actually a local truck route because it allows northbound trucks from McDonald Avenue to access the Prospect Expressway. And then there's signage along Sealy Street. If you go at Prospect Park Southwest, there's a sign that says no trucks except local deliveries. There's a sign at 18th Street. So the signage is there. We rechecked the appropriate signage. And that's why, as Emily mentioned, that we would work with the local precinct to have enforcement. Because DOT can only do so much as far as enforcement. We're not, that's not something that we're able to do. We can put up signage, which we have put up signage. But then, the second part of it is enforcement, which the local precinct has to help us out with that. And that's something that we are going to actively, look to have their assistance.
Okay, thank you so much. And I just wanted to thank you for the speed camera. We're down, I'm down closer to like East 3rd and Greenwood. And that has, I think, made a difference. And if we do see speeding happening up on Sealy, I appreciate that might be, or on 20th, like that might be an option. Thank you so much.
Okay, Jeremy, could you help with calling on other attendees?
Absolutely. Let's start with Jorge Muniz Reyes. Jorge, you could unmute yourself.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So just real quick, I know time is of the essence. So I think, I have a comment and a question. I think this is mostly an incomplete plan from DOT, and that's okay because, DOT has proposed half-baked plans before for 7th Avenue, 8th Avenue, and 3rd Avenue. And, we're thinking them through together, and I appreciate them coming with a serious proposal, though, because that's the best way to move a conversation forward. So that's one. Two, I think, truck traffic hitting a bunch of cars and causing chaos. It's definitely happening in Windsor Terrace. I was just there for the precinct council meeting. It's also happening right by 3rd Avenue, 16th Street. I just had a truck, take my traffic lane. And, a few years ago, I had a neighbor that died. And, I think we're at a record, I think we're basically where we started with Vision Zero. I think de Blasio made promises, streets are going to get safer, and, really hasn't happened. I think a record number of children died. We just had kids get hit on 7th Avenue. So, I applaud DOT. Thanks for coming with a serious proposal. I think what's missing here is to think about the other road users. We thought a lot about cars, but we didn't think so much about the people and the kids and the bikes. A lot of the people in Windsor Terrace, they order from the Sunset restaurants. We got a lot of e-bikes. It's causing some confusion in the streets. So I think, my question to DOT would be just, what's the community feedback process? And, when can we get the complete plan from you? So that's my question to DOT. And, I'll leave it at that for now, but I have a lot more thoughts to share.
Thank you, George, for your comments. This is a plan that we are proposing to CB7 and are seeking approval for. So that is where we're standing today, but we do appreciate your comments. Thank you.
I have Ben Essner next. Ben, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Heidi Brown using Ben Essner's account. Thank you, everybody from Sealy Street who joined the call today and coming out so that we can be recognized. and showing CB7 that we deserve to have safe streets. And thank you to the DOT for your proposal. And particularly Cindy, I thought you asked excellent questions. I also want to endorse the idea of a speed camera or speed center, speed sensor specifically at the 20th to McDonald Avenue side of Sealy Street. That hasn't been mentioned, and there is a lot of speeding at our end too. We're a short block, but we get a lot of traffic, a lot of service vans, trucks, so forth come barreling through, and they will continue to do that to get to McDonald Avenue, even after the street goes one way. So I really want to strongly request a speed camera. Also, the intersection at Sealy and 20th Street, where an all-way stop sign setup has been placed, has really not resulted in very much compliance, I would say, with the traffic. And people are using the stop signs as basically options and suggestions. I don't know if the DOT has come back to look at the effects of the all-way stop signs that have been placed, but they have not done very much at all to get people to drive more safely through that intersection. And I request, if it's possible, a flashing red light at that intersection at all ways. I've noticed that it helps a lot on the frontage street, the access street that comes off of the Prospect Expressway further down into the neighborhood. People are very good about recognizing that stop sign. And that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have Laura Jacobs next. Laura, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Neil Eisenberg speaking on Laura Jacobs' account. I am a member of the Safe on Sealy Street Community Board. We have over 125 community members on here, and we've been working with Community Board 7 and the DOT for a number of years on this issue. I want to say, first of all, thank you to DOT, Keith Bray, Ryan Litch, and the entire team for listening to us, for having honest conversations with us throughout the years, and for making incremental changes on Sealy Street with the interest of making our street safer. You put speed humps in, you put a stop sign on 19th Street, and now you're coming forward with an intelligent proposal on how to make our street safer. So we really appreciate that. And Community Board 7, we want to thank you for facilitating and coordinating these discussions and helping us through this. It's been a collaborative and thoughtful conversation, and it's been really amazing to be involved in. What you've proposed here is a very reasonable and thoughtful solution, and I am in full support of it. So thank you very much, and I hope someone from Community Board 7 will issue the letter that's required to help move this forward quickly, and we can get this work done this summer and in the fall. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I have Justin Petrillo next. Justin, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Jeremy. Hi, this is Justin Petrillo. I live on Sealy, like many others on the line. I just want to echo what Neil said. I wanted to thank the actions of the Community Board 7 for listening patiently to the needs of our community when we expressed our concern about the safety of the street. And a big thank you to DOT for working collaboratively with residents of Sealy Street and with DOT to find a solution to this concern that we've all had. I'm speaking out in full support of the proposed changes. They're reasonable and will, between all of these changes, contribute to this being a much safer place for people to walk, to bike, to cross. And thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you. I have, one moment. I have Merrill Breitbart next. Merrill, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Meryl. I also live on Sealy Street. I just wanted to echo what those before me have said. I'm very much in support of the making of Sealy Street one way towards McDonald Avenue. I have a 1-year-old daughter, and it's very scary crossing Sealy Street, especially with her. So I'm excited for her to be able to grow up on a much safer street in a much safer neighborhood. So I hope that the community board is able to, as Neil asked and Justin asked, produce this letter in support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have Lisa Zelig next. Lisa, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I also want to, this is actually Eric Winnick, speaking on Lisa Zillig's account. I just also want to thank those from Sealy Street who have spoken before me, and as well as the DOT for this proposal. Big support for the one-way street proposal here. I think many will agree that the amount of traffic that is happening and traffic jams that are happening as a result of what we like to call the dance of cars as they try to circumnavigate one another on the street and pass each other has become intolerable, worse than in the 14 years I've lived on this street. The visibility onto Prospect Park West turning from Sealy is extremely limited and a real problem. And I look forward to seeing what happens with this proposal and give my full support to the one-way street proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Gerald Mulvaney next. Gerald, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, you know, I do have some friends on Sealy Street, but I have to say I'm against the one-way option. I believe speed is still going to be an issue. You have contraflow traffic from both ways right now. And with a one-way, there'll be our speeding perpetrators will have that much more freedom to just zoom down the street. I wish it would stay a two-way. I wish there was a stop sign placed on 18th Street and Sealy, and a traffic light placed on McDonald Avenue and Sealy, where those turns onto Sealy are quite problematic. I'm also concerned about the area in general. Prospect Park Southwest, how will the people that have been traveling from McDonald on Sealy into our neighborhood, how are they going to get to Prospect Park Southwest now? It's congested like a parking lot right now. I don't know how it's going to improve. How are those people going to travel to our area? And I'm just concerned about what's going to happen when this is put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I have Anthony Kakamo next. Anthony, you can unmute yourself.
You got it? Okay. What are you doing?
Anthony?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
If this is Anthony, yes.
Okay, this is Anna Maria Kikamo. I live on 20th Street between Terrace and 10th for 25 years. I have raised 3 children on that block. And I have to tell you that the Department of Transportation is making it basically impossible for me to get from my house to the church, Holy Name Church, and home within a reasonable amount of time. With the amount of congestion that's on 19th Street by making 20th Street a one-way is impossible in the afternoon. It takes 30 minutes to get down the block. And thank God your proposal for Sealy Street is going towards McDonald Avenue, because that is now how I have to travel home from the neighborhood. I have to come down Prospect Avenue, make a right on Vanderbilt, take it up to Sealy, make that left, come across, and make the right on 20th Street to get to my house. So please, as you're making all of these changes, please take into consideration this very small but beautiful block where we live and love and have been here for so long and raised beautiful kids here. I mean, the issue really is the bikes, the illegal bikes that are driving around. They are on the sidewalk. They're driving through red lights. I saw parents today go right through red lights in front of me. They had the red, I had the green. They both crossed on a bicycle with a kid in the back. I mean, trucks may be an issue, but the bikes have really become a very serious issue. And no, I cannot stop driving. I have an elderly mother who can barely walk a half a block. I need to be able to get her to her doctor's appointments. I need to be able to get her places. So getting rid of the car and not driving and getting on a bike is not an option for my 82-year-old mother. So please consider this block, because turning 20th Street into a one-way in front of us, you have really trapped us. And all I can say is thank God that Sealy Street at least is going to go in the direction of McDonald Avenue, so at least I can still get to my house. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Jack O'Connell next. Jack, you can unmute yourself.
Unmuted. Jeremy, first
Yes.
let me thank DOT's presentation tonight. You did a superb job. I want to also support Neil, Merrill, and Justin's report on how we support DOT's proposal of westbound one-way. I'm just going to use one quick anecdote that happens with some regularity that happened today. An ambulance with its red lights and siren blaring was going eastbound on Sealy Street. It had to stop at the Prospect Avenue Bridge because traffic was blocked all the way to Prospect Park Southwest. The ambulance had to back up to 18th Street. So there's an emergency situation here that a one-way street westbound, and the excellent presentation by DOT tonight, this needs the community board to send a letter in support of this. This is important for everyone who lives on the block and everyone who rides in an ambulance. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jack. I have Ben Esner again. Ben, you can unmute yourself.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for a double take here. So I'm Ben. I'm the other half of Heidi, in some respects. So I just want to say, like, so I think I really just want to emphasize one thing that kind of got obfuscated a little bit tonight. So you know, my own view is one way. It's fine, although I do think the woman on 20th Street had some really good points that you all have to take into consideration about, you know, the neighborhood and people who live in the neighborhood and their routines and their, you know, their needs. So I do think that's important. But all of this is trivial, honestly, without enforcement. And DOT can throw up their hands, say, oh, that's NYPD, not my problem, right? I get the bureaucratic stuff, but Community Board 7, y'all don't get to do that. You have to get the police department to take this seriously. You might as well take out the stop signs and just let's have some crashes. When there's a gun death, all the cops come running because they can make detective. But when there's a fatal crash or somebody gets killed, nothing happens. There's no mobilization. 51 people have died of fatal car accidents this year in New York City, 51. So Community Board 7, you don't get to play the bureaucratic game. You are responsible for protecting us. And you are responsible for getting the NYPD to take this seriously. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I have run out of attendees with hands up. I see another hand just went down. Katie, I don't have additional hands up.
Okay, yeah, there was Jury Chan. Did Jury want to add anything? And then one other hand went up, AH, and then we can go back.
Okay, so let me add, this question is more after hearing what everyone is talking, saying concerns and stuff. One on the slide that you had, a timeline slide. Can you go to that slide? I don't know whose screen is this. Okay, so on January that what I'm trying to say is I'm hearing some residents, I'm hearing pros and cons, right, about this conversions and stuff. I don't want to just turn this into something that we had last year with 8th Avenue and 7th Avenue. I really want, you know, the DOT engage with the community and really talk to everyone, right, about the concern, the pro and the con about converting. My question is to DOT. Have we done that exercise? Actually go out there and knock on every single resident. Hey, we're doing this conversion, right? What do you think? Just questions for DOT.
Yeah, and there is the slide that's up, which I think is really helpful, which talks about the timelines. So Emily, if you can respond to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So no, we did not go to every house to knock on residents' door to ask their concerns of the street. We do not have the capacity for that. However, I have been receiving emails from many people in the community who keep requesting more information about Sealy and requesting updates, as well as the SOS groups support Sealy. What was SOS again? I forgot.
Safe on Sealy.
Safety on Sealy, yeah. And so they initially came to us and asked for us to actually also look at it and to make the streets safer. So that's also where the additional background also comes from. And so, you know, we're okay with hearing opposition and what we can do better. So happy to keep hearing and listening to what the residents would like to see.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to that might have activated some more hands. Let's just go to Diana, and then we're gonna move to the next steps. Diana?
Yeah, I think some interesting questions have been raised here about the inadequacy of stop signs. And so I want to revisit this. I believe you said that you're going to have an all-way stop at Sealy and 19th. I'm a little worried about that because 19th is a downward slope. And so people do like pick up a lot of speed there. Wouldn't a light be better?
So, like any stop control, whether it's a traffic signal or an all-way stop sign, there's certain criteria that has to be met for that to be installed. So when we looked at this intersection, the criteria that was met was an all-way stop sign. And then as far as vehicles, like the downhill slope, it's not a substantial where, it's a short block. And also one of the things is a lot of the volume that you see on 19th Street now is because they cutting across Sealy Street. With the conversion that volume would be reduced at coming down 19th Street. So that's the reason that we have an all-way stop and not a traffic signal, because it doesn't meet the warrant for a traffic signal.
Yeah, and then my other thought is just more of a comment of, throughout Windsor Terrace, we have problems with drivers coming off of the highway and driving too quickly and trucks going where they shouldn't. And we do need a lot more in terms of camera enforcement, because the police are never going to be everywhere. And so that's something I'd like to be on the record in support of. And I hope that we'll continue to have a dialogue about these street safety issues and how, cameras and other things like that can assist the NYPD with enforcement, because they can't be everywhere all the time. Personally, I live at Prospect Park West and 18th Street, and about once a month I see an oversized truck got off of the highway and is trying to figure out how to get back on, and they get caught on the 45-degree angle in the intersection. They get stuck there because they can't make the turn. And so we also had the incident with the truck that lost its brakes barreling through Windsor Terrace and taking out several parked vehicles. So this is something that I know that NYPD is responsible for enforcement, but that DOT can help with providing 24/7 coverage. Thank you.
Okay, folks. I think we're moving close to a motion, but I just want to, if it's burning, you haven't had a chance to speak yet, and you have a question specifically. Okay, I will. Let's see if there's any other board members who raise their hands. Jeremy, maybe you can we'll just do this last call. If you can just let me know if there's anyone who hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, I have 3 hands up, 2 who haven't spoken.
Okay, maybe start with them.
Sure, I have Gretchen Hartman first. Gretchen, you can unmute yourself. Gretchen Hartman, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me? I am a resident.
You actually, we have to, you must be on 2 computers. You have a really bad echo.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's manageable. Thank you.
Resident of Sealy Street, a member of SOS, which is over 100 people who belong to it. We are very satisfied with the collaboration we've had with the Department of Transportation. And we are hoping that in the interest of time, this wonderful plan that they have put forth, they really got what is happening in our neighborhood. And I'm really happy and thank you for that. And I hope that this can pass quickly so that we can move on and start implementing this plan. I would support a letter of support being sent out by the board for this plan. Thank you.
Okay, so we're just going to focus if you haven't spoken yet. That's who we'll call on. So Jeremy?
I have AH next. AH, would you please unmute yourself and identify yourself?
Andrew Hayner, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. A few comments. Love presentation. Some concerns. Concern maybe one-way street might drive down the volume of traffic, but it might increase the speed due to it being wide enough to have one-way traffic. So it might be safer in the aggregate. The worst case scenario of a high-speed person being hit might actually go up. That side-by-side dance previous record might actually keep speeds down. Second concern, where does the traffic go? I'm not sure we're doing anything by moving more than moving the problem. I mean, I live in this block. I think I personally would benefit by this actually, but I don't know if we're just not moving the problem. I wonder if DOT's considered that. I do love the increased signs, corner bump outs, signals, all that's amazing because everything that makes a full stop is good. It's the current one at 19th where you go off the highway is amazing. That's a huge improvement. These are all honest critiques. I personally, again, think I benefit from this. I'm just concerned if the traffic pattern will just go generally won't make the overall problem worse in the whole neighborhood. Regardless of what decision you guys make, I appreciate the transparent and quality of the presentation. So thank you for your time and service.
Thank you. I want to remind our friends at DOT and others that there are questions in the Q&A. Katie, I have no new people with hands up, but I do have one additional hand up.
Okay, go for it, Jorge, and then we're going to move on.
Jorge, you could unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you very much. This is just a very quick data question for the New York City Department of Transportation agency professionals that are with us this evening. Again, thank you for coming with a serious proposal. I think everyone, it sounds like many of the Windsor Terrace residents seem mostly happy with it. You've heard some concerns, but you've also heard some other concerns as well from other parts of the neighborhood. And so my data question is really just really simple. How safe is Sealy Street? How dangerous is it? How many Vision Zero injuries, pedestrian fatalities have truly happened here in this section compared to the other parts of Brooklyn Community Board 7? And I ask that because, as you know, the construction window is very narrow. The projects we approved today are basically what's going to get done this summer. And I'd like to know, as a taxpayer, someone that lives in the neighborhood, you know, what work is being put forward in the neighborhood? Are we doing it responsibly, equitably, fairly? And so if the agency professionals could please let us know, how safe is Sealy Street for the record? And how does it compare based on your expertise on the other segments of Sunset Park, Windsor Terrace? You know, Brooklyn Community Board 7 has a big geography. And, you know, if you want to speak or comment at all to the priorities of how this, you know, DOT is doing its job right now, I'd welcome those thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank
So,
you, Jorge. I can just, we can give the KSI, which is a killed severely injured stats number for this section to the board after this meeting. We don't have it on hand right now unless Bhavin does. However, we did hear that this was a concern for community members and the members who, or the residents who live on the street, and they personally banded together, formed a coalition on their own accord, and came to us with a problem. And this is what our solution would be to that issue. Is it perfect? No. Can it be improved? Yes, but that, again, over time we can do so. So that's what we have to say.
Okay, thank you, Emily. So I appreciate, we're gonna move to next steps. If you could, I think, John, you might have a
Yes,
motion?
sure. So for this, Emily, you said you guys needed a letter of support. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so I would like to motion then for us to take the feedback that we've gathered tonight, and then also, since we do have a full board meeting just a few days from now, to be able to gather the feedback from there as well, take that, bring it to the meeting that we have in June so that we can get everyone together, so we can incorporate that and get you guys the best letter that you need. How does that sound? A motion to collect the feedback from tonight's meeting and the meeting on Wednesday, to write our letter of support to bring to the board in our June meeting.
And I'll
I
just,
second that, but not to write, to discuss with the board first before we write the letter, right? Do we need to talk to them first
Jerry, it
before we write
sounds
the
like
letter?
let's have John clarify what the resolution is that's in front of.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So my thinking is, right, when we do our report, the Transportation Committee report on Wednesday, we always mention what happened in the meetings. We will have the opportunity to mention this meeting. People at those meetings tend to have a lot of questions and concerns who didn't come to the meeting. So we get that. So we gather the feedback from here, the people who've sent the letters to Jeremy, and then anyone who, after we make our announcement, sends anything to the board before the next meeting. We gather that together so we have that letter that we can vote on. Does that make sense to you, Jeremy? And does that make, or not Jeremy, to you, Jerry, as what you're seconding? And then to everyone else on the call?
Yes.
Okay, so Jerry seconded that proposal. So there's a resolution on the floor. And so June 8th is the next Transportation Committee meeting. So just so people have dates, June 8th is the Transportation Committee meeting. And then this would go to the full board to be voted on before the summer break, which is June 21st, which is the Wednesday. So DOT would have a letter by end of months from now, but we just want to make sure we capture all the comments. So there's a resolution, right, Jeremy, that is on the floor. So can we take questions on the resolution?
Questions on the resolution, yes, or comments on it.
Okay, questions or comments on the resolution from board members, Cindy, and then we'll go to Diana.
Yeah, it seems to me that there's overwhelming support from the street's residents. And what I don't want to do, and I want us to consider as a committee and a community board, is I don't want to hold up the process if a letter of support is what's going to make the difference to move this forward later this summer. It seems to me that, if it were my choice, my friendly amendment would be his friendly amendment to vote on moving this forward now. Like I understand that there are some nuances to this, but with the support that we've heard from residents of the community, I don't understand why we would hold this up for until the end of June, because to me, that sounds like it would push the work like deeper into the fall. And so I just wanted to express that concern specifically. And if we were to add anything to our letter of support, I'd want to add these speed concerns and a desire for the speed cameras and humps where they don't exist.
Okay, so let's, we can ask Emily about timing, just about this difference of the 5 weeks. Just the rationale is that there's a lot of comments that came through. There are about 100 people who showed up. Everybody, we want to do the thing where we get it all down, and we want to make sure the comments are all reflected. There were sort of based on experience of being on that block, there were certain comments, those blocks, there were certain comments that were made about other considerations. It's really important that we're on the record about all of the considerations that were raised in the comment of providing a letter of support. You all know what this is like with DOT, so it's really important that we capture all of the feedback and that it's in a letter, and the timing is really like we don't have time to get this to the community board 7 in time before Wednesday's meeting. So this is just like how this is falling. But I don't want to mess up the process too much. I do want to make sure we can ask Emily this question about if she gets something on June 21st or something, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Bhavin answer that, but I believe because most of the work that would be done is in-house, it could be done at a faster timeline than a project that would have other design elements, that would take longer.
Yeah, we can still implement it, like I mentioned, late August into September. Even if we get the letter.
If you got a letter of support, would you do something June 1st? How quick do you guys move? Because my experience is
we're not magicians.
Yeah, so unless it's a solid affirmative support, we can't move with scheduling. So that's our constraints that we're going to be honest with.
Okay, so so the sooner you get it, the better. Okay, so any other questions, Diana?
Yeah, I agree a lot of, I can't talk. I agree with Cindy. I don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I want to vote to write a letter of support, and then we can compile additional comments as they come in through the upcoming community board meeting. Let's not be the ones who hold this up and then there's another accident involving a pedestrian like we had not that long ago. That's my bottom line. I don't care about, I'd rather not wait another month unnecessarily.
Okay, so procedurally, we might need some help. John, or Cindy has a friendly.
Then I have to withdraw my motion. I mean, she had to withdraw it.
Well, yeah, can I ask a quick question following on this procedural thing? I think Cindy made a friendly amendment, which is that means that is what is on the table, right? Is Julio still here? I know he's the parliament expert.
You have to accept the friendly amendment.
Okay.
If you don't, it could be an unfriendly amendment if she gets a second.
Okay. So I would accept the friendly amendment as the person who introduced it.
So John, would you just clarify what the language would be if you accept the friendly amendment?
Okay. So I would say for us to write a letter of support, provided that we can still accept feedback up until the letter is sent. Is that make sense? Is that something possible?
John, if there is a vote on Wednesday night, it is likely I would be sending out a letter by Monday.
Okay. I'm okay with that. But I guess I need to check with Jerry, right, who seconded, whether he also accepts the friendly amendment.
I could, yeah, I could accept or withdraw my second. Either one, I think it's fine. Wait,
No, we're
I could
looking for you
accept
to
it. I could
accept
accept
the
it.
friendly amendment.
I could accept it. Never mind. I
There you
have to
go.
get my American Legion thing that we always work on. Yeah, okay. I accept.
So to clarify, there would be a vote on Wednesday to approve this, John, with the idea that we would collect testimony and a letter would be sent out as of, say, Monday.
Okay, I that is amenable to me.
Question that is coming in from Cindy. You have your hand up again.
Yes, I'm wondering if I can make another friendly amendment, something I brought up earlier, which is whether we can add to the letter of support but add to the letter of support considerations for speed cameras and humps beyond this project. We don't want to hold this up, but that
Can I just interject?
Sure.
So I do want to make everyone aware that there is a limit on these cameras and they are currently at capacity. However, state electeds have the power to make sure that more cameras are given to New York City. So until legislation is passed that we have a higher amount, or we're allowed to have a higher amount of cameras on the street, that won't be able to be our best option. However, we do have something called mobile speed camera deployment, in which we deploy a mobile speed camera in a car that is pretty much incognito, and it does take the data and issues fines to the cars that are speeding. And so that's another way that we can move forward with enforcement on our end. However, we can also talk to NYPD to do spot enforcement and set up a regular schedule with them for specific intersections. So I think that would be a way to move forward.
Okay, thank you. So I guess then my friendly amendment is that we do a full letter of support for what was presented here, but that beyond this project, we do want to make sure that like the issue that concerns that residents have about speeding, that's addressed, whether it's through the mobile speed cameras, whatever actions can be taken at different the state level, as well as the exploration of putting speed bumps on the McDonald kind of avenue side of Sealy Street as well. And so that would just be, it's not to say change the proposal in any way. It's just as a community board and as a committee, or as a committee at this stage, we support it. And this speed came up, this was something that came up in the meeting tonight. So this would be sort of a next step.
Yes. So Cindy, I think that's, capturing the comments. There were a lot of comments that people made. So I think that gets reflected in the record of the comments that goes to the letter to DOT. Okay. So we have a resolution that has been, before we do any votes on it, John will say again what it is, because we've had some friendly amendments that have been added to it. And then we're going to have the transportation committee members vote on it. So John, can you just reiterate for folks what it is?
So the motion was to draft a letter of support incorporating the feedback from this meeting until the letter is drafted for this project.
Okay.
If anyone
And
wants to wordsmith it, welcome to that as well.
okay, so that's the resolution that is on in front of us.
And I
And
just want to make sure it's essentially to approve the Sealy Street changes as proposed, while also incorporating in our letter of support the feedback that we get from the community, both tonight and through the drafting of the letter. Am I correct?
Jeremy, you said it perfectly. That's exactly what I was hoping to put out there.
Thank you.
okay, and this is just for anyone who's joining. So make sure you send both to Emily as well as the community board. Those are the emails that are up, and the phone numbers to contact them. Jeremy, how can people access this proposal?
That would be through DOT's website. They said they are going to be posting it tomorrow.
Yeah, so this will be posted tomorrow and we'll send the link to the board.
Okay, Emily, where will it be posted?
Sorry, Jeremy, you're muted.
Thank you. We'll be happy to send that link out to anybody who was in this meeting and beyond.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
going to be posted on our website under current projects. And
Okay.
it'll just be titled Sealy Street.
Okay. Okay, so there's a resolution in front of the transportation committee members. Just seeing if there's any other clarifying questions on that resolution. Oh, I don't know if I froze. Can you hear me okay?
We could hear you.
Okay, that's fine. So I would just ask actually with this one, Jeremy, for your help, if we could just do a roll call vote. This is to
Yes, I'm happy to call roll.
okay, thank you. So again, this is for the resolution. We heard the friendly amendment letter of support.
And I just want to say to folks, please send your comment. Feel free to send additional comments into the community board by email. Let's start on the resolution with Katie Walsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Katie Walsh, yes. Thank you. John DeLuper.
Yes.
John DeLuper, yes. Joan Body. Jerry Chan.
Yes.
Jerry Chan, yes. Diana Gonzalez.
Yes.
Diana Gonzalez, yes. Zachary Jacy. Roberto Martinez.
Affirmative.
Roberto Martinez, yes. Marilyn Melman. Gabino Morales.
Yes.
Gabino Morales, yes. Sam Sierra. Cindy Vandenbosch.
Yes.
Cindy Vandenbosch, yes. Chairperson Julio Pena.
Yes.
Julio Pena, yes.
Great, thank you. So those are all our transportation.
8 in favor,
Sorry,
0
you're counting.
opposed, 0 abstentions.
Sorry, one more time. I was talking over you. One more time.
No problem. 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions.
All right, thank you. So thank you to the Sealy Street residents and neighbors. Just to put this up one more time, do make sure that you send through your comments, your feedback. DOT's posting this under proposed projects on their website tomorrow. And then you can also, please, if you're going to send something to DOT, please CC Community Board 7 so we can just make sure we get all your comments. And thank you for the neighbors who showed up tonight. Okay, so we are going to, and just to reiterate, this is the Transportation Committee. And so the folks who are voting are the people who are serving on the Transportation Committee, just in terms of understanding how Community Board 7 works. I'm going to go to the next agenda item, which is neighborhood loading zones. Again, thank you to Sealy Street neighbors. So transportation committee members, thanks for holding on. Community Board 7, we are 2 hours into this meeting. And I want to just find my way to a presentation that I have. So just bear with me 1 second as I do that. So we have asked, okay, so I'll say the things as I'm opening this up. We have asked Transportation Committee or NYC DOT Transportation to come to the community board to talk about these neighborhood loading zones. They have told us they don't have the resources to come to do a presentation on the neighborhood loading zones. So I find myself having to do a presentation on neighborhood loading zones on behalf of DOT. I am not a DOT employee. This doesn't make sense, but I just want to reiterate that what I'm going to try and do in the next few minutes is share a slide deck that was given to me from Emily from DOT. Again, we've escalated this in every which way we can to try and get them to talk to us about neighborhood loading zones, and it is not possible. So with that, I'm going to try and open this up and just take a few minutes. And the goal of what we're trying to accomplish in doing this is run you all through these slides so that there's awareness. And then the next step of it is to actually be able to gather any questions and show you what they've shared with us. I think this is it. Okay. I don't know if are you guys seeing this as a full screen? I don't know if I know how to do it. Okay, yes, there it is. Okay. Okay, so welcome to the agenda item of neighborhood loading zones. So Community Board 7, I'll show you the 2 locations where we have this, but I'm just going to do my best in providing this. Again, I'm not a DOT employee. So neighborhood loading zones were introduced. The goal of what they are trying to accomplish is reducing, you can read it here on the screen, reducing the amount of delay and safety issues that come from double parking. You all know this, you see this. This is happening with deliveries of all different kinds, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, all other types. And so the target users are, again, these like commercial delivery vehicles for residential and commercial delivery, as well as any of these like personal, excuse me, personal vehicles for quick pickup and drop off. And so there are right now, for current locations and usage, there are over 330 neighborhood loading zones citywide. You can see some of the dots. I guess this is really small to be able to see what this looks like. If you go to the website that's listed here, nyc.gov/loading, there's an up-to-date map of all loading zones. There is new signage and regulation that just has gone up. So again, I'll go to the slide that shows where they are in Community Board 7, but there new signage that just is very recent, talking about where the loading zones are. So it looks like there's a shift before May and then now after May in terms of what they actually look like. And so they'll say as of May 2023, all new neighborhood loading zones will say loading only. Okay. They take up 2 parking spaces. They might be adjacent to other curb spaces like a fire hydrant or curb cuts. As we'll see in the 2 sites that were chosen, these are in front of large residential buildings, which, okay, like that, trying to have it be a location that can, again, have these vehicles kind of in and out. And then they're not putting them near police precincts, firehouses, or other public facilities. These are just general characteristics. And then actually don't know, maybe somebody will recognize this corner, but being able to identify locations to figure out what the main criteria should be. Narrow streets with large residential buildings, and then streets that, again, might have bike lanes or bus routes where double parking is already happening and is an issue. Okay, so community feedback. This is a new portal. So this is a new thing that that DOT does have. So several times when we've talked about this, it has been requested that people just go to this community feedback page if you want to suggest a location for a neighborhood loading zone, or if you want to respond to an existing neighborhood loading zone that has gone up in your community. So again, we've never had a presentation from anyone from DOT come to Community Board 7 to talk about the neighborhood loading zones. That has not happened. That's why we requested it. And then we have them in the neighborhood, which again, is why we're showing up tonight. So this is one way you can provide community feedback. The other way is going to be through the conversation tonight. So this is on loading feedback. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for this one. I will go to, sorry, last thing, share screen, Community Board 7, share. Okay, I'm sorry I don't have a image so we can see the street view of this, but this is where the current neighborhood loading zones are already up. 41st Street between 6th and 7th, and 44th Street between 6th and 7th. I do have, sorry, I don't have it tonight, but we have been given street addresses so we can at least see where they are. These are already in. And so there might be neighbors here who all are already seeing these in effect. But what we wanted to do, and I will stop sharing the screen right now, is take comments or discussion points that we can then feed back to DOT about the neighborhood loading zones, questions that we have, considerations, and general feedback. I'm happy to go back to any of the slides that I have, and if you have a question, please put your hand up, and you're already doing it. So and we've got some new energies, which is great, from new board members. Okay, so board members, how about I'll do Damien and then Jeremy Kaplan on deck, and then we'll go to Jerry and then Cynthia. Okay, so Damien, over to you.
Yes, I definitely support, these loading zones and et cetera. I find like it's a great way to like pick an area in the neighborhood to like make a designated spot. I guess another suggestion to add on to that little edit is that there is a loading zone in front of my house on 45th Street and 3rd Avenue. And like, I love the loading zones. It's just the only fact is just, I guess the commercial, I don't know, it has to do with the planning, but the people who do these loading zones or the companies, they tend to leave a lot of their supplies and all of that on the public sidewalk, and it kind of interferes with like public access. So maybe, something could be assigned to make sure like these commercials and these people kind of take their stuff and like make way or like clean up, I would say, like the mess and etc.
Okay, and Damien, because we don't have the benefit of having DOT here in order to respond, it's possible what you might be referencing is a commercial loading zone, which is different than these like neighborhood delivery loading zones, but based on the street address they gave us, I mean, it's point well taken. But we'll just comment, we'll gather all the comment and all the questions, and thank you for that. Jeremy, and then Jerry, and then Cynthia.
Hi, yeah, I'm on 41st Street, and I noticed that neighborhood zone literally like a month ago. And the one thing that I would say is, and it's good to see that the presentation said that signage is changing, because I think right now it's incredibly confusing. The sign basically has almost like a paragraph on it and does not have like any good like icon or anything to sort of designate what it is. So you kind of have to stop and then read this long paragraph to realize what it is. And so I think at least on 41st Street, it's not really working. But I think it is a really good idea. I think everybody knows that it's like you see tons of delivery trucks, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, all that stuff, and blocking various streets. And we know that a lot of streets in Sunset Park are narrow. And so that's always an issue. So I think that's a really smart thing to do, and to sort of build it out. But yes, definitely take more community input. It's good to see that the signage will change, because I think that's the biggest issue right now. I don't think people on 41st Street are really even aware that they have it.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your firsthand experience, Jeremy, on the block as well. Okay, so we're gonna go to Jerry and then Cynthia.
So you playing with DOT, this question is not from you, it's more like you write it down, send it to DOT, right? I hope, again, they get community input before they start putting this all over the neighborhood, just like 8th Avenue again. All the truck and unloading zone, no one's using it. I mentioned it many times. No one's using it except for setting up shops, because they know no one to park there. Okay, so great idea, but need to talk to everyone first. That's my question. Towards DOD, not you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Yes, no, thank you. Thank you. All of this is good feedback. And even Damien's point earlier about the commercial loading zones and how they're working. So Cynthia, John, then Cindy.
Okay, hi. Katie, my concern is that, you know, I think that when it comes to traffic, all of the issues that have been brought to bear regarding traffic, the issue really comes down to enforcement of, you know, the traffic laws and how things should work. Now, in terms of the loading zones, I'm thinking that I have never ever seen that on 5th Avenue or 4th Avenue, where some of the commercial, most of the commercial business, other than 8th Avenue, of course. So my question is, we're going to take away more parking for these loading zones. 5th Avenue is a nightmare. It's a nightmare because it's very narrow. It's two-way. People do not obey the law, and the law is not enforced because there's really no one chasing these people, And someone mentioned earlier in the previous presentation, ambulances have to get, by through these places, and there's nothing done to enforce, people not double parking on 5th Avenue. It's a nightmare. So my question is, why are the loading zones going to be on the side streets where parking is going to be taken away from the residents that live there, when it could be taken away from people, that are on the avenue where the majority of the population travels? It's just a question in my mind. I think that if you're going to have loading zones, they should be where it's most needed, like on the commercial strips, not on the side streets where people who, depend on that parking. I recall years ago, I parked my car in a specific location in Sunset Park, and one morning I woke up with a ticket on my windshield, and then I was saying, like, but why am I getting a ticket? And when I looked up. It was like in the dead of night. They had put a bus stop where I normally park my car. So, I mean, it's funny, but you know, between City Bike, between these restaurant cabins or whatever, a lot of them are very underutilized. Why aren't we turning those places into a parking loading zone when the clearly the pandemic is over? People are eating inside the restaurants. I mean, this is like, can we address it?
Yeah, I'm a messenger. We've asked DOT to come and present. They should do this. This is, again, kind of ridiculous situation I find myself in, having to present on DOT's behalf. That being said, trying to do this right now in real time. What they have shared is the basic characteristics of a neighborhood loading zone. And Cynthia, what you're talking about, this idea of like there's commercial loading zones, and we would benefit if they could be here to talk, but neighborhood loading zones, the criteria that they had identified were specifically narrow streets, residential. It's like blocks where double parking is a problem because there's so many deliveries that are happening. And that is a real thing that has increased rapidly, is the number of people who are using delivery. So I am not a DOT employee. I'm just trying my best to kind of respond to your question. But we will capture it and provide this back. And again, we just have these two locations, 41st and 44th, between 4th and 5th, that have neighborhood loading zones. And if you have comments and suggestions about where other neighborhood loading zones could be, please go to this web page in order to put your comments down. And we'll also collect them in the course of the meeting. There
But
are a
Katie,
few.
also,
Yes.
Katie, also, I just want to say that you know, we have had, and you know, thank God that you're in charge of the transportation committee, but we have had years and years and years of problems communicating our concerns to the DOT. And I was very happy to see that they were here on behalf of Windsor Terrace and their study of Sealy Street. But we have not gotten that kind of response from them here in Sunset Park. The DOT, to them, we're like the phantom zone. We don't exist to them. And they left before this part of the presentation, which was an important part of what they do, what they are trying to do, but yet no, they don't do it for us here in Sunset Park. And I am, I'm offended by that as a lifelong resident of this community. And so are you, Katie. We know that we don't get the respect and that we deserve from the DOT, but other communities do. So I'm like increasing demand for curb space, for unloading. I'm all in support of that as long as it is where it's needed, like on the commercial strips, not on the public side, the side streets where people are going to be losing their parking. This is outrageous. It's not fair. It's not fair. I think that we should put more loading zones where it's really needed, in the commercial strip and on 4th Avenue, where traffic is a nightmare. So that's my only comment. And I appreciate all of your work, in this committee, because I know how hard you work, Katie, but the problem is that I don't see how 41st Street or 44th Street is going to solve the problem, of these delivery needs.
Thank you, Cynthia. Really appreciate it. So we'll go to, sorry if I've lost track, but John and then Cindy. And then Diana.
All right, thank you. So I had a kind of interesting experience with loading zones a couple weeks ago. I was chaperoning my son's class trip to the movie theater. When we come back, we have to go up 59th Street because we have to get to the area where the bus can drop them off. So we go up the street and then we get boxed in. There was a vehicle we couldn't see, a box truck unloading far up the street. And then we got several cars coming up behind us. At that time, I was thinking, you know what? This street would have benefited from a loading zone. So what I was thinking with that is, if DOT is looking for our feedback about what to prioritize when they install these here, I would say they should look onto long streets, right? Because if we had been able to see that truck, we would not have turned down that street and we wouldn't have gotten boxed in. So long streets, I would urge them to look into that. I also want to follow up on Cynthia's concern about the equity issues. It's my understanding that the city is required by law to install 100 new neighborhood loading zones every year for the foreseeable future. So if these are as effective as DOT has said about reducing up to 70% the double parking, then we need to stay on top of this. And we need to be checking in on this regularly to make sure that we get the amount that we should be getting and we don't, it doesn't fall behind, like we don't get these clustered in certain neighborhoods, but not other neighborhoods. So I think that's an issue we will need to stay on top of in the years ahead. So those are, and I'll add one other thing. In terms of the parking, I also think it's pretty interesting that they're doing 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. that this will be regular parking. I would also want to know how they will make sure that that happens, because I know that a lot of people are coming home at night and they do want to, it helps for people who work in the day to come home and have the parking available versus it being perhaps monopolized by some of the business unloading, which Damien mentioned, because I've seen that in other neighborhoods that have the neighborhood loading zones that like Amazon trucks will start sorting their inventory on the street. So I hope that's good feedback that we can bring back to the agency.
Thank you, John. Okay. Cindy, Diana.
I'll make this quick. I'm a little confused about the target users are the personal vehicles, the passengers getting dropped off, the commercial delivery vehicles, the taxis. That's a lot of different classifications of target user. And I know that this is a pilot. I do want to see it decrease double parking and congestion. But it is something that I want us to keep our eye on as the community board, in terms of like how that's going to be communicated clearly and then also enforced, so that there isn't sort of it's three significantly different use groups, whereas in other parts of the city there might be like a commercial loading zone or something, and that's abundantly clear. And so I'm just wondering, like, how is that actually, is that playing out, is I guess my question in their pilot run. Like, are passengers actually able to pull over into these spots, or are they not really using them in those ways? What does the data show us? Or are these just by default just being used by commercial delivery vehicles? And it would just be good to know for us to be more informed.
Thank you. Okay, Diana.
Yeah, so first of all, Katie, you're really going above and beyond here, playing the role of DOT. Wow, I can't talk. Playing the role of DOT today, and so thank you for doing that. My comment's pretty simple. You mentioned that one of the target locations was adjacent to crosswalks. Is it that right?
Let me see what they have. I mean, you all are learning with me, so
Can I address that?
Yeah,
I think from
sure.
the picture, they're talking about curb cuts like driveways and stuff.
Oh,
At least that's what it looked like in the picture, but I could be wrong on that. You can send that feedback to we can send that feedback to DOT. But yeah, I think it's curb like
at
drive.
corner of blocks near retail stores. So at the corner. is what they're talking about in bullet point 3. So my concern with that is pedestrian safety. You have these big boxy trucks right up against the crosswalk, blocking the visibility around the turn in a spot that possibly couldn't be a legal parking spot because it's too close to the crosswalk. That seems to me to be literally an accident waiting to happen. And if you were the DOT and not the Transportation Committee Chair of Community Board 7, that is a complaint that I would make. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So other board members with their hands up who didn't have a chance to ask a question or make a comment. And then I do want to just go to public comment and we can come back. So if it's Jeremy and then Jerry, and then we can wrap up.
I would just say quickly, I think what they did was they tried to prioritize, they put it in front of like the co-op buildings for 44th and 41st and 44th. And I guess they were assuming, I think we see a fair amount of deliveries and stuff to those bigger buildings. And I think that's an interesting idea of thinking about it in that way, of finding larger apartment buildings where you'll have more deliveries, or say you have, you know, elderly people who live there who need to use access, taxi, access-a-ride, things like that. In that sense, I feel like that makes one parking space much more valuable to everybody in a large sort of apartment building. So that's not one of the criteria, but I think that's something that we can think about as a community. Like there's, you know, corner blocks with larger apartment buildings, 4, 6, 7 stories, that maybe those are the more ideal ones, that reserving one spot for that purpose actually ends up helping, you know, multiple people versus the one person who owns that car that will be sitting there for most of the day.
Thanks, Jeremy, for the comment. Jerry? Okay, Jerry, if you don't have a question, then we'll just go to public comment or questions. And okay, so Jeremy, you can help us with any public hands that have gone up.
Jorge Moniz Reyes. Jorge, you can unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you. So my question is just really, I think we're compiling a list of questions for NYC DOT, who disrespectfully is not on this call tonight. But I just wanted to just publicly voice the question I put in the chat, just about the signage that's being used. I think people have mentioned it's just like a dense paragraph of English. I don't think anybody that lives in Sunset Park and knows, like, you know, there's people, like older people, you know, sometimes the street signs are confusing. Like, I don't want to see a situation where we put in neighborhood zones and then, you know, people don't understand the signs and then the people just get a bunch of tickets because they want to enforce it. I don't think it's good, especially right now. You know, people, you know, are only really just coming out of pandemic time. So, you know, most of the time when the police, you know, talk about enforcement, it's usually like fines on like black and brown, like delivery workers and like the truck drivers. And, you know, I don't want to see shit like that happen. I think everybody wants, I don't think the goal is more fines. The goal is safer streets and less double parking and just clear streets so people can be safe. That's it. That's the goal. So I don't want 8th Avenue repeated either. Obviously, there was a whole mess that didn't work out and we just wasted a bunch of time. So that's my comment. And just the, you know, question to DOT is like, show us the design of the signage so it's not just a way to entrap people and give them tickets.
Okay, and we're Jerry, last hand up if you're still here. If not, then we will.
Sorry, I'm here. Someone called me real quick, right? So what was I saying? Oh, so it doesn't matter if they put a sign or not, right? People still go double park anyway. They still get a ticket. Putting a sign there is only going to fit one car. right? I never see people actually stand in line or wait in line to get their turn to get the parking, so to get offload and unload. People would still double park. So I think that the DOT really need to think about this, right? And before they actually start putting this all over the corner and people don't pay attention to it. That's
Okay,
it.
thank you, Jerry. So thank you everyone for providing your comments. All of this is gonna be reflected in what we share back specifically to Emily and to Keith Bray, who I think is actually has been on the line. Not sure if he's actually plugged in or not. But so these are the Keith Bray, sorry, is the Brooklyn commissioner. So this is the community feedback. So we captured your comments tonight, and we also will ask you if you want to put anything in there. We covered a lot tonight. Thank you everyone for bearing with us. You were just on. It's almost 9 o'clock. And we will see everybody at the Wednesday board meeting. Motion to adjourn a committee meeting? Necessary, unnecessary? Someone can second?
Second.
Second. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
See you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.